All right, it looks like we've got a few people here already, so I'm going to go ahead and start the webinar. My name is Johanna Lounsbury. Again, welcome to the Recipe to Market online course series webinar. Today, Victor Willis and I will be here talking about the three courses, the first of which will begin on May 1st. Let's see. So as I said, my name is Johanna Lounsbury. I'm a project developer at Professional and Continuing Education at Oregon State University, and I've been providing coordination for the Recipe to Market program. Victor Willis is a course instructor. I'm going to let him introduce himself a little bit more thoroughly later on when he takes over from the presentation. I just wanted to make a brief note that hopefully everybody can hear quite clearly. If you can't, you have the option to select audio on your GoToWebinar control panel, and you can go ahead and select telephone. It should give you a number that you can call in and hopefully hear a little more clearly. Okay, so today the agenda is I'm going to start off on the presentation and give a quick overview of Oregon State University and Professional and Continuing Education, my unit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the instructors and the food writing elective course, and then introduce the online course format. And then Victor's going to go ahead and take over and talk about the three courses that he'll be instructing: brand and market planning, development and production, and business planning, legality, and financing. At the very end, we'll have a question and answer session. And just a brief note on that, if you have any questions, feel free to um, type those into the chat window, and we can get to those at the very end of the presentation. If you don't think of questions now and you think of them later, we will have an email address and a phone number at the very end that you can use to contact us and follow up with any questions you might have. Also, a quick note, this webinar is being recorded, and we will have an edited version of that available on the course website probably early next week, and we'll also go ahead and send out the recording to everybody who's attending today. So you can share that information with others, or you can just go back and review some of the slides if you want a little more information. I just wanted to make a quick note too that the logos that you see on the right side of the screen here are the case studies that we have highlighted in the course. These are all people that were kind enough to let us interview and video them. And so if you do go into the courses, you'll see that you'll see little snippets of information and kind of little gems of wisdom from these companies as you progress through the course. All right. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on this slide. If you want to read everything and see it a little bit later, again, the course or the webinar will be recorded, so you can go back and check this out. The one thing I do want to highlight is that Oregon State University is one of the nation's 2 fermentation science programs, and it has a really fantastic food science program here, which is a great resource for the public. And I really can't stress enough, as a land-grant university, it's OSU's mission to serve as a resource to the public, and I encourage you to take advantage of this great resource as you start up your food business. Case in point, some of the case studies that I showed you on the slide before this have used the sensory labs here and have also consulted with researchers for advice on shelf life, packaging, business, etc. So can't stress enough, OSU is here to help you as you journey as you launch your business. All right. Again, not going to go into too much detail here, but I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Kristen Griffin, who's going to be instructing food writing, which is going to be the elective course. And it's for those of you who want to learn a little bit more about writing about food for various audiences and various formats, from the memoir essay to the feature article. This can be useful for marketing or for personal interests. It's going to be a great course. I kind of want to take it myself. And one for you foodies who are also writers. This course will begin in August, and you can find more information on the website. Also, please keep checking back as more info will be available on this course over the next few months. Okay, so the course format. All 4 of these courses are going to be online. The 3 that Victor is teaching, the brand and market planning, development and production, and business planning, legality, and financing, and also the food writing course. Your time commitment for these courses is 4 weeks and 6 hours per week. The 6 hours can be taken whenever you want and in whatever segments you want. You can take 1 hour here, 1 hour there. You can take the course at 2 a.m., at 2 p.m. It really is a ideal, flexible online format for busy schedules. The time commitment includes all the readings you'll be doing for the course, everything you see when you're online, and also the time it should take you to complete your assignments and to post those. So it really is a nice light course load. These courses are instructor-led, and I think it's going to be a cohort style. It's going to be, we're definitely going to encourage a lot of interaction between the instructor and also the other students in the course. There's going to be a discussion board, and there will be the option to contact the instructor and arrange for office hours as well. And we really want to encourage people to feel comfortable within this space and to share resources and ideas and bounce your ideas off of each other and really kind of finish with somewhat of a network, basically. There is a $100 discount if you take all 3 in Victor's course series. And if you take those within the same year. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide. And without much ado, I'm going to go ahead and pass that off to Victor Willis. He is unmuted now, and let him talk about his 3 courses: brand and market planning, development and production, and business planning, legality, and food. So take it away, Victor.
Great, thank you, Hannah, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for devoting some of your time today and dialing into this very exciting new entrepreneurial course. I'm going to cover the next 4 or 5 slides, and I'm excited to walk you through the content and illustrate some of the points with some examples from my experience. So this slide is very important. Before you embark on spending thousands of dollars, Recipe to Market Online can help you understand if being an entrepreneur is right for you and help you chart a course for brand success. There are 28,000 food manufacturing companies in the United States. There's a lot of competition out there, and all of them are spending thousands and thousands of dollars when they started up a business. On average, it typically costs a food entrepreneur $25,000 to $30,000 to launch their brand on the marketplace. Now, that's on average. If it's a farmer's market, it'll be a little less. In fact, could be quite a lot less. If you're trying to launch into a small food chain, like a local company like New Seasons Market, or in a different market in Seattle, like PCC Markets, then it's going to be closer to $25,000 on average. And that includes startup costs. It includes financing for raw materials and packaging. So there's a lot of initial expenses incurred. And this course is designed not just to walk you through the process, but to ensure you're entrepreneur ready in terms of have the necessary skills and attributes to ensure your success. So let me give you a quick overview of the courses. Recipe to Market Online is going to provide an entrepreneurial foundation for developing and launching a successful food or drink business venture. Let me just make an additional point on that. There are many other products in the consumer goods sphere, such as wellness products or supplements, that also could benefit from this course. So whilst much of the language and terminology will be focused on food and drink, there will be many of the points will be very relevant if you have an idea for a supplement or a wellness brand, like a skincare product or something along those lines. Behind the scenes, we will also provide access to several successful entrepreneurs through video and written case studies. Hannah showed on one of the previous slides some examples of Portland and other Oregon-based successful entrepreneurs who've launched a food company in the last, many of them in the last 3 to 5 years. And in addition to that, we'll provide written entrepreneur case studies. And in total, there'll be at least 20 to 30 entrepreneur case studies that we will pepper throughout the course. so that you really have a good understanding and to help you avoid many of the pitfalls associated with startup brands. In addition to the video and written case studies, we will be including questionnaires and exercises to help familiarize yourself with the language and the minds of food and drink entrepreneurs. On to the 3 courses. The first is going to be brand and market planning, which is going to be rolled out, as Hannah explained, on May 1. The key takeaways from this will be you'll learn the important elements of a winning product concept, how to test your idea, and steps to take to maximize your chance of success in the market. As I briefly mentioned earlier, the first of the 7 points that constitute brand and market planning will be focused on, are you an entrepreneur? Now, as we know, entrepreneurs are born and made. An entrepreneur is one who starts or assumes control of a business, often employing innovation and more than an ordinary degree of risk. That's a quote taken from Entrepreneur magazine, a very successful trade magazine for aspiring and established entrepreneurs. We know, and you'll know, if you know people who are already entrepreneurs, that starting a business is and can be one of the most challenging things you ever do in your life. And in addition to understanding the process, we will be making sure that we provide tools to help you be entrepreneur ready prior to spending the first dollar after this course. This will include a 35-point questionnaire which will assess your readiness to be an entrepreneur and identify any opportunity gaps that you can help focus on to ensure you're even more ready. Another aspect is we will focus on navigating the industry landscape. Again, this isn't helping you through the process of being an entrepreneur, but it's especially important to understand the landscape that you're going to be entering into. The landscape is littered with the bodies of failed brands, and some of the important things to understand will be the manufacturing sector, the competitive retail environment, and then also the 2 different ways to sell your product, either direct to consumer markets, for example, a farmer's market, a roadside stand, or online, or alternatively and more popularly, there is the indirect selling approach, which is where you will sell to distributors and use and employ brokers and distributors who will sell and take your product to retailers. That is an especially complex market, and it's important to understand that the costs are involved, the network and the infrastructure of that landscape. Defining your product attributes is going to be the first point to get you thinking about your product and your brand. Some of the key things here which we will be covering will be helping you crystallize your UVP, or unique value proposition. So in a word, what is the key phrase or sentence or sentences that will help describe what your product is? Some other things that we'll be covering are, under the attributes, are you need to be thinking about your key ingredients and the emotional, sensory, and physical properties of your product. For example, if you're developing a jam, do you want your jam to be focused on fruits? Do you want to enhance the fruits by adding other ingredients, other herbs, and to try and make it really unique and different? And once you've established your attributes, you want to codify those attributes and those benefits. Many things that entrepreneurs are facing as they launch their products right now is the profusion of logos and claims that they can use on the front of their packaging. Better Bean Company is an example of a successful Portland-based business that recently secured B Corporation certification, which is a socially responsible logo. Another example might be, do you want your product to be organic or non-GMO project or gluten-free? So these are some of the things you want to think about as you plan your product. Situation analysis, we will be looking at typically the 5 Cs to make sure you understand the market you're entering before you start to develop your concept. We'll cover things like the company, the customer for your product, the competitors, collaborators that you'll want to engage, and the climate that you're launching into. Creating a brand plan and identity is really the what of your product. And amongst the various topics we'll be covering then, we'll be looking at the importance of protecting your name out there in the marketplace. One example recently is a Oregon-based company called Wild Squirrel that was launched by 2 University of Oregon graduates. And when launched it, they didn't realize that there was another company, Wild Squirrel, that already existed. And they were served with a lawsuit encouraging them to change it very quickly. Very cleverly, the 2 young ladies that started the brand made a name change from Wild Squirrel to Wild Friends. They were able to keep their squirrel logo on the front of pack without making any adjustments, and so preserving some of their brand integrity and at the same time avoiding a very costly lawsuit. Registering your domain name is also an important part of preserving and enhancing your brand identity. And you'll need to do it very soon after you've conceived your name. One example of a problem in this area is Ruby Jewel Company, which is a wonderful ice cream and ice cream sandwich company started by Lisa Herlinger a few years ago. Unbeknownst to Lisa, another individual registered rubyjewel.com and asked Lisa that if she wanted that name, she would have to pay them $5,000. Now, obviously, Lisa balked at that size of money and was able to navigate around that by using an alternative .com domain name. Then when the individual who owned that name, the .com name, lost interest, Lisa was able to return and negotiate a much better rate for Ruby Jewel. So again, it's trying to navigate the industry landscape and minimize your costs in the process. Rounding out the brand and market planning is marketing plan development and running a sales and promotional strategy. The sales and promotional strategy, typically in this sphere, companies or courses cover the 4 Ps: product, place, promotion, and packaging. But we want to include a 5th P, which is very relevant in this day and age, which is people. And within the people point, we will be talking and illustrating lots of examples of coming up with a social media strategy. Some of the key points you need to think about in this day and age to spread brand awareness and engage your customers. So development and production is the second of the 2 courses, and we're going to provide you with the tools to help develop and test your product prior to production and commercialization. There are 6 points that we'll be covering during this course: concept development and testing, packaging, product development, licensing and regulations, processing options, and food safety. One of the earliest things you'll need to think about as you develop your product is, where do you envisage it being merchandised in your point of sale? Whether it's if it's a farmer's market or if it's a retail store, and whereabouts in the store. Will your product be a frozen product, a shelf-stable dry grocery? Do you envisage it being in the refrigerated section or in the bakery? So many things to think about. And the reason is that those will all obviously have an important impact on packaging, licensing, food safety, and processing options. Packaging is an important aspect to think about during product development. When I think about some examples that I've encountered in recent years, how milk went from glass to high-density polyethylene, And why was that? There were many reasons. It's much more cheaper to distribute a lighter weight plastic bottle than a glass bottle. The litigation costs were significantly less from glass fragments and not using glass. And many of the plastic bottle manufacturers were able to develop and build adjoining packaging companies next to milk bottling operations, thereby significantly enhancing efficiency savings. Another example is BPA, or biphenyl A, which was an ingredient in many plastic bottles. As we've seen from a lot of the media coverage in the last 2 to 3 years, many of those bottles are now able to state BPA free. And so if you're developing a product where packaging is going to be extremely important, and you need to think about potential leaching impact into the food product. For example, if you're developing a baby product, then you need to be extremely careful and thoughtful about not just the formulation, but about the packaging that you use. In product development, as well as coming up with your concept and testing it, you'll be and will be covering things like shelf life tests, testing your product amongst friends and family, and the importance of doing product analysis to demonstrate what you feel are your attributes, whether it's a nutritional benefit or a claim that your product is non-GMO free. Testing can help ensure and back up your claims and enhance your credibility. Of course, testing is one of the areas where it can be expensive, and so it's important to think ahead of what your attributes are and what types of tests you're going to need to think about to preserve your credibility. Licensing and regulations, we'll be looking at federal and state-related regulations and licensing. Processing options, of course, there are many. In Oregon, where Oregon State, of course, is located, Oregon is one of very few states where home kitchens are approved and licensed to develop and sell food products up to certain dollar amounts. But there are other areas and other spaces where you can manufacture your product. It could be a shared use kitchen. You could be using a co-packer or a co-packing arrangement. There's the emergence of food incubators. So many different options. And as you grow, you'll no doubt be switching your manufacturing facilities, say from home kitchen to a co-packing unit to eventually perhaps building your own manufacturing facility. And finally, but certainly not last, is the importance of food safety throughout this. Food is and drink are products where food safety is absolutely integral to developing a successful food product. And one of the tools is called HACCP, or Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. HACCP was the process that astronauts first used when they went up in space to ensure that their products were as safe and as risk-free as possible. And that concept filtered down 2 to 3 decades ago to the food and drink sector. HACCP is going to be something that you'll want to consider as you think through the commercialization of your product. And course 3, finally, which starts 1st of September, is going to be covering business planning and finance. Business planning is an important aspect, of course, for any entrepreneur, food or not. But business planning cannot capture your passion, and that is why at the start of these 3 courses, we really focused, when we created them, on helping you understand if you're entrepreneur ready, helping you nurture your passion, and helping you crystallize the attributes and marketing plan for your product. Now, business plans can be small or large. They can be detailed or not very detailed. It's important to have a business plan very important, but it's not necessarily the most important. In a straw poll of entrepreneurs recently at a trade show that I went to in Anaheim, California last week, 60 to 70% of entrepreneurs that I interviewed informally did not have a business plan to start with. They had a plan, a marketing plan, or some notes that they'd put together, but they didn't have a detailed business plan that they could take necessarily to a bank to obtain a loan. And that's an important aspect that I will connect to, which is about financing, is that when you're a startup entrepreneur, typically the forms of financing that you seek are referred to as the traditional finance funnel, which is approaching friends of family first, thinking about angel investors, looking towards banks, and once you have positive cash flow, then considering exploring venture capitalists for funding. So those are all important aspects. And a business plan, in the early days, you will not be using that to go to a bank to obtain a loan, because in this current financial age, banks are reluctant to provide loans without some sort of collateral or positive cash flow. But the business plan will be useful for you to help you navigate and guide you through the whole process of being an entrepreneur in the early days. Ownership, registration, and contracts are things that we're going to cover in detail as well. We'll look at things like insurance, we'll look at property, liability, all of the things that are going to be important to you as you embark on the entrepreneurial journey. Product protection we've covered a little bit just in terms of domain names, but in this third course, we'll look at patents, copyrights, and the importance of trademarks. Developing a business plan we've talked about. What I would add to my earlier comments is, whilst many business plans can be very lengthy, in this course we'll help you create and structure a much smaller 1 to 2 page business plan that you'll be able to reference in your early days. And that way, if you need to make changes, it won't be so onerous because it's going to be a much smaller business plan. But it'll cover the key elements of a business plan, helping you solidify the vision, your mission, what your unique value proposition is, or what I term the secret sauce of your product, the objectives, the tactics, who the competition is, and what the status and timeline is for your rollout. Record keeping is as important in all of this, and we'll look into balance sheets and many different parts of the financial picture that will help you understand what you need to do. So what are the learning outcomes once you've covered all of these courses? Well, we really want to make sure when you finish the course that we help you understand your strengths and weaknesses as you start out on the road as an entrepreneur. We help you learn the essential skills for navigating the small business landscape, to gain access to the tools and resources needed to launch and grow your food business, familiarize yourself with the terminology and steps to commercialize your food product, and last but certainly not least, create a realistic startup business plan based on the input from myself and all of the course materials and case studies that are included.
All right, thank you, Victor. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, and I appreciate everybody who attended. Thank you for spending the last few minutes with us hearing about the course. Hopefully it was very informative, and I look forward to welcome you to the classes. If you have any questions, we'd like to open the floor. As I said before, you can go ahead and type in the chat window if you have any questions for me, and I'll go ahead and, or for Victor as well, and I'll go ahead and read them out loud and we can address them. Otherwise, if you have questions that come up later, feel free to call the number that's on the screen or email the email address on the screen. Also, there's a ton of information on the courses at pace.oregonstate.edu /recipe to market. Let's see. I don't see any questions at the moment. Feel free to. Oh, there's one from Melinda. Let's see, Victor. This is a question on brick and mortar startups, and the question is the course also good for brick and mortar startups? Do you mind taking that one?
Yeah, sure, Hannah. Maybe I could get some clarity on the question. By the question, I'm assuming that maybe the attendee wants to set up a food and drink retailer. Would that be how I understand the question?
Let's see.
Um, my answer, let me jump in.
Sorry, Victor. She did follow up. She said
Oh, okay,
she's thinking of starting a bakery in her town.
okay. Um, some of the aspects will be relevant to starting up a food retail enterprise. Um, when I'm saying some of the aspects, I'm thinking of um, sales and marketing. I'm thinking of branding um, and market planning and development. But the majority of the content is really geared towards food and drink products and not to retail establishments. So there are some things that we won't be covering. For example, um, food trucks. Again, many of the things are relevant to food trucks or maybe startup bakeries, but we're not going to be covering the legal requirements, the licensing requirements for those types of enterprises.
Mhm. Yeah, Melinda also followed up by saying that her idea is more to put products into the marketplace. And so, if I understand that correctly, it's more kind of a starting with selling in farmers markets and then maybe selling to grocery outlets and things like that. I think that's what.
Oh, okay.
So, and also, I'd like to point out that there is one of the case studies actually is a gluten-free bakery that we interviewed, New Cascadia Traditionals. And as Victor said, we won't necessarily talk about planning of location and things like that, but a lot of the stuff really is is a um, similar bent to what we'll be talking about in the course. Um, let's see. I don't see more questions. Does anybody else have any questions for Victor or I? Um, I did have a question that I thought I'd propose since it's something that just came up to me while Victor was talking, and that is is this course relevant for people outside of Oregon? And I would say yes. We've designed the course to be relevant to people across the nation. You know, of course, laws can change across states, and they do, but a lot of the elements are really going to be basically the same, even though we're based in Oregon. Um,
Hannah, I just received a question also, which is this course, how does this course differ from other courses that cover and try to cater for food entrepreneurs? What I would say and how I would answer that is that the Recipe to Market online course really has a unique point of difference. Firstly, it's online. There are very few courses available in the nation that are accessible and online. The second piece is that this particular course includes a very large number of case studies, not just written, but video case studies, where you are engaging with those entrepreneurs. You feel like you know them after you've seen many of these video clips that we'll be including and dotting throughout the whole three courses. So just by nature of those two key attributes, this is a very unique course that we are going to be rolling out.
Excellent. Thank you, Victor. Let's see. Got one more question. Is the open forum for discussing ideas kept confidential? Um, and I think if I could follow up with a question to you is, do you mean the open forum within the classroom, and do you want to be sure that the ideas be kept confidential amongst the students, so proprietary information? Um, I think that's what the question's about. Do you mind speaking to that, Victor?
Um, Hannah, it sounds like it's more of a structure-related question to do with the course platform. Um, I suppose what I would say in regards to how I can best answer that myself is that um, there will be opportunities for um, aspiring entrepreneurs on the course to collaborate through exercises, but of course it's going to be led and generated by themselves. If they are not comfortable with doing that, then that's totally fine. And of course, as it's an instructor-led course, I will be available to have um, private one-on-one conversations or group discussions through the platform. So there's going to be opportunities for both types of engagement.
Okay. Thank you, Victor. Um, did that answer your question? I assume so. I think so. Um, okay, good. Anybody else with any last questions for Victor or I? As I said before, if something comes up, then please feel free to use the contact information on this slide. And we will also have the webinar available, a recorded version of this webinar available on our website next week. Um, so if you want to follow up and refresh your memory, or if you have any questions, please do so. Let's see. I don't see any additional questions on my side. Victor, do you see anything?
No, no more questions from here.
Okay, cool. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much to everyone who came here and listened and shared your questions. Um, there's a lot more information on the course on pace.oregonstate.edu /recipe to market. Also, the contact information on this page will hopefully get your questions answered. I hope that this was an informative few minutes for you. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.